God dag allesammans, good day everyone, välkommen and welcome. My name is Lynn Wilson. I am a regional sales manager for Hurtigruten, and today we are here to discuss our signature premium itinerary, the Svalbard Line, and I will be giving you a day-by-day overview of this itinerary. If you are watching this video, then you already know you want to explore Norway, and I'm here to convince you that Hurtigruten is the best choice for you. So let's dive in. Let's first talk about a few facts pertaining to Norway. First and foremost, 1,700 fjords. We have had over 30 ice ages in Norway, so I do believe we may have the highest concentration of fjords in the world. 50,000 islands, 2/3 of our country is mountainous. So I can tell you that we have one of the most stunning coastlines in the world, and that is a big draw for guests all over the world to come visit us. You should also note that these fjords, islands, and mountains also basically contributed to how we came to be as a company. So go ahead and file those facts away. You never know when you'll have a trivia night. If you have landed on our page, you should know that Hurtigruten is quite different from most other cruise lines. So just don't compare us to anyone else and you will be fine. We like to stand on our own, and let's go into some of these differences here. I'm going to lead with the fact that we have over 130 years of reliably servicing the Norwegian coastline. We have forgotten more about Norway than most others will ever know, is what I always like to joke. And our story began back in 1893 by carrying mail along the Norwegian coast. So think back to those 1,700 fjords I told you about. We do have this stunning coastline, but very logistically challenging to navigate. Back in the 1890s, mail would take weeks to reach the north, if not months. So weeks in the summer, months in the winter. And in 1891, the government floated out a contract to all seafarers asking if anybody would be willing to transport mail and cargo on their ships along the Norwegian coast, also making stops at night. Keep in mind, the Norwegian coastline can be treacherous with our 50,000 islands. So initially, no one took the bait. That is until our founder and Captain Richard Witt, he commandeered the DS Vesterålen here, and he started out on July 2nd, 1893 by sailing from Trondheim up here to Hammerfest. And history was formed on this route. What used to take weeks to months, he achieved in a matter of 3 days with 9 ports of call along the way. He arrived 45 minutes ahead of schedule, and history was made. Hurtigruten was born. This was the fastest route to reach the north, and thus Hurtigruten actually quite literally translates to the fast route. We have never looked back. We are very well known as an absolute lifeline to the Norwegian coast, even now, over 130 years later. This itinerary that you're looking at, that is what we now refer to as the original Coastal Express. And we do have 7 ships operating this itinerary year round. So these are working ships, however. So in conjunction with our 130th anniversary, we launched a new commercial itinerary that has fewer ports of call, and that is the Svalbard Line. So we have taken our 130 years of experience and we've now curated a new premium signature itinerary for you. So also on board any Hurtigruten experience, regardless of cruise that you choose, you should note that this is your home away from home. This is your base camp at sea. We don't have casinos or water slides. We have the most stunning coastline that you will have a front row seat to. The onboard format, you should treat your stateroom as your bedroom. So the non-suite options do run a bit tighter. So that is your bedroom. If more space is important to you, you should be looking at a suite. The restaurant should be considered your kitchen. The 2-story panorama lounge, that is your living room. So when you are looking at any Hurtigruten experience, the whole ship is built for your comfort. There's no dress code on board. You leisurely traverse the entire ship. You have loads of outdoor deck space to take in that midnight sun, sail into the land where the sun will not set throughout your entire journey, and you will have a front row seat to the tranquil, beautiful scenery that is the Norwegian coastline. So if you can think of maybe a cottagey kind of a feeling, maybe you've gone on a mountain retreat or what have you, that calm feeling, maybe you're knitting, you're crocheting, maybe you're reading a book or building puzzles, playing Uno. It is that type of ambiance that you'll have on board. The Norwegians have a wonderful, slow living, slow way of life that is really welcoming. So this is something that I think resonates well with most of our guests. Our ships are actually much smaller than the other ships that visit Norway. So where they will take a few thousand guests, we only take a few hundred. So the MS Trollfjord will max out at 500 guests. So that means we can hug the coast much closer and we fit into these tight, narrow fjords where the other ships just cannot go. A Hurtigruten experience is much closer to an expedition experience than it is a traditional ocean experience. And by that, I mean we have the deep knowledge and expertise. We have the lecture programs on board. So we will have coastal experience teams on board. They're going to give you a variety of lectures, all pertaining to Norway. If we pass areas of historical and cultural significance, we're going to invite you out on deck for what we call a point of interest out on deck. So right here, you should note that when you sail with Hurtigruten, the entire point of a Hurtigruten experience is to provide you with the most authentically Norwegian experience. You're going to see the Norwegian coast. You're going to learn about Norway, and you're also going to taste the coast of Norway. 80% of our food is sourced locally from over 70 suppliers. That means that you're going to have some of the freshest ingredients served to you. And then we will have a lot of culinary storytelling on the MS Trollfjord and on the Svalbard Line. We really celebrate all of these suppliers. We want you to know about them. So in the restaurants, you're going to find stories in the menus, and we're also going to have a lot of culinary storytelling at all of your meals as well. We have an award-winning concept called Norway's Coastal Kitchen. So also important to note that if you are sailing with Hurtigruten, you should be prepared for a traditional Norwegian cuisine. There will be other comfort food options as well, but it is the point that you will have the most authentically Norwegian experience, and that will also translate to the food. So I mentioned that we started here with the original Coastal Express, and that for our 130th anniversary, we did launch this premium signature itinerary, the Svalbard Line. So with this itinerary, this is not a working ship as our original Coastal Express. We will not have 34 ports of call that we need to hit over the course of 7 days. So as opposed to up to 6 port stops per day on the original Coastal Express, we're going to cap it to 1 to 2 port stops per day on the Svalbard Line, and we will not be making any stops at night. So if you're tuning in and you are accustomed to a more traditional cruise experience, the length of time in port will be more intuitive to you. So the longer port stays, it's also more inclusive on board. So you're going to have access to additional restaurants. You're going to have a generous drinks package included. You will have enhanced onboard activities over the original Coastal Express. So if you are the type you do really want that more premium experience, then the Svalbard Line is for you. Absolutely also calling all foodies. This is a culinary cruise in spades. So you absolutely need to connect with your inner foodie on this particular itinerary. And I did mention we don't have a dress code, but maybe consider leaving that tight clothing at home. If you embark in jeans, you may debark in sweatpants, and that is okay. Anything pertaining to Hurtigruten, also always consider us to be modular. All of our itineraries, or I should say most of our itineraries, are modular with different lengths. So the full round trip Svalbard Line would be 15 days and would take you from Bergen up to Honningsvåg, then sail all the way almost up to 79 degrees north in the high Arctic archipelago of Svalbard before returning down to mainland Norway, sailing through Tromsø down to Bergen here. That's 15 days round trip. Let's say you have an interest in the high Arctic and you want to extend in Longyearbyen. You can choose one of the half voyages. You can go north, Bergen, Honningsvåg, and debark in Longyearbyen, or you can fly into Longyearbyen and then sail up to Ny-Ålesund, then back down by means of Tromsø down to Bergen. I'm going to give you a day-by-day port overview. So let's say you can't do the full 15 days, but you'd like to peruse one of the half voyages, then I would encourage you to pay attention to these ports. And if there's any ports that jump out to you that you hold interest in, then that might determine your stretch if you do northbound or southbound. So let's start in Bergen here. So this is Norway's second largest city, and this is also the main hub for Hurtigruten Original Coastal Express. So Bergen is no stranger to Hurtigruten. Everyone knows us here. The pier is walking distance from city center, and even before you set foot on the ship here, you have the UNESCO listed Bryggen. So, and this is a beautiful city with lots of hiking opportunities. It's surrounded by fjords. You can take the funicular Fløibanen and go up to these impressive vistas where you can see the beautiful city of Bergen. Highly recommend that you definitely plan a day or two extension here, whether you're starting in Bergen or whether you are ending in Bergen. We will set sail in the early afternoon, and we're going to sail through the night until we reach Åndalsnes, which is the mountaineering capital of Norway. And it's also a tiny town, home to just about 2,000 people or so. The theme here is friluftsliv. This is our Norwegian love for the great outdoors. Norwegians are obsessed with hiking and camping and skiing and kayaking. If there is an opportunity for a Norwegian to be outside, we will always take it. And this is something that we want to pass on to you, our guests, as well. So also here, pay attention. There are two fjords that you are sailing through to get to Åndalsnes, and you're going to see these jagged mountains all around. So a big draw to Norway, of course, would be the fjords. So you'll find that this is a fjord-rich itinerary as well. If you're following along in the left-hand column here, you'll see the time in port as well as optional excursions that you can opt to book. So you'll see here, we'll be here from the morning to the early afternoon, plenty of time to explore. Another component about Hurtigruten, we're not going to take you to all the tourist traps. We want to show the authentic Norway. So Tirana would be one of these ports. Tirana is an archipelago that sits along the Helgeland coast at the edge of the Arctic Circle. It's wonderfully wonky, in my opinion, because it sits 33 nautical miles offshore, and it is home to one of the smallest municipalities in Norway, just about 500 inhabitants. You can imagine this remote way of life, living 33 nautical miles offshore in the polar night, if you will, or the midnight sun in summer. It's also one of the oldest fishing villages. We have archaeological finds dating back to the Stone Age here. So lots of history in this region. You will have the opportunity to explore independently or participate in the culture walk. Maybe you want to do a little polar plunge with the Arctic dip, sauna, and swim, or go island hopping. But Tirana is one of those ports that is just a bucket list destination, in my personal opinion. When you get to Reine, this is probably one of the most photographed landscapes in all of Norway. So this is in the Lofoten archipelago, and Lofoten is known to be one of the most scenic areas of all of Norway, and you will find an old fishing village here dating back to 1743. You're also going to see these red painted rørbuer, which are these fishing huts that are basically contrasted against this backdrop of these beautiful mountains. So you're going to have the opportunity to also visit a village called Å. There's an optional excursion where you can visit one of these old fishing village museums in Å. And this is a city, or a village rather, that has one letter, and that is Å. So you will learn about the development of fishing in Lofoten over the last 250 years. So Tromsø is the gateway of the Arctic, or the Paris of the North. So we're following in the footsteps of history here. So most of our explorers and sailors on Arctic expeditions would embark from or return to Tromsø. That's how it got its name as Paris of the North, returning from these long, treacherous quests that they went on. It was that warm feeling of returning to society, if you will. So we're going to be here for most of the day from 8 a.m. until about 4 p.m. here. So you do have ample time to explore. Tromsø is also quite walkable. Loads of optional excursions that you can book, or you can opt to explore independently. But this is one of those bigger ports. The sun does not set for months on end. You are squarely in the Arctic here, above the Arctic Circle, home of the midnight sun. Honningsvåg is the port that is the jump-off point for the North Cape, often considered to be the northernmost point of mainland Europe. I'm sure there's a point or two that might lie a little further north, but this is definitely the most impressive northernmost point of mainland Europe because it sits on a cliff that sits about 1,000 feet above sea level. And in this region, it's home to lots of bird life. You also have a lot of Sami culture in this region as well. So lots of optional excursions. Highly recommend visiting the North Cape. So there's a few ways to do it. You can go to the North Cape, or you can add in a king crab experience. Maybe you want to take a four-wheeler to the North Cape, or maybe you want to go on a bird watching safari and then also go to the North Cape as well. So lots of activities. Highly recommend that you do visit the North Cape. And just when you think we can't possibly go further north, but we're going to go ahead and say, but wait, there's more. We are now headed to the high Arctic archipelago of Svalbard. So we will have a sea day crossing from mainland Norway up to Svalbard. We will sail past an island called Bjørnøya, which translates to Bear Island, but that is a lie. That we are not known to have polar bears in this region. I don't know how that name came to be. There's only a few researchers that live on this island year round here. So we will sail past. There's lots of birds in the area. So make sure you have your binoculars and watch out for birds on this. We'll also have an enhanced lecture program on this day. So we will keep you entertained through education. The halfway point will be Longyearbyen. So for the northbound going guests, this is where you'll debark and hopefully extend for a few days. It is an awesome town, home to about 2,500 inhabitants from over 50 different countries. Svalbard is really interesting in that you don't need a visa to live here. And it's just full of just quirky, fun facts. You know, most people take their shoes off. So when you go to the hotel here, they're going to give you slippers. So wear slippers into the hotels. They don't even have a bank here. It's fully cash free. I learned that the hard way when I was trying to pay for something here. So don't worry about bringing any cash up to Longyearbyen. There is no ATM. There's no bank, but they do have grocery shops. They have plenty of provisioning shops in the region, but these people live in extreme conditions. So the sun does not set between late April and late August every single year. So it's basically high noon. And then in the winter, the sun does not rise. So they absolutely have that dark polar night. But yet there's some of the happiest people that you're going to find anywhere. So it is a wildly interesting place to visit. And so many cool people live in Longyearbyen. So highly recommend considering one of these optional excursions. We will be here for about a half day or so. So make sure you are reading up on Longyearbyen before you get there because it is beyond interesting. So for those who want the higher taste of the high Arctic, we will sail on and go up to Ny-Ålesund. We're going to be here for about 4 hours, but even on the way in, we are sailing through fjords past glaciers. So make sure that you get up early. Ny-Ålesund has a population ranging from the tens to the hundreds. It is largely a town, an old coal miners town that's now converted to research. So we're going to cut the Wi-Fi. We're going to cut the Bluetooth anywhere. I think it's around 20 kilometers before arriving and after departing Ny-Ålesund, because there's loads of research equipment in this region for glacial research and climate research. So this is going to be the theme of today. You'll get a front row seat to one of the probably the most remote village in the high Arctic here that you can visit. And you'll learn that nobody locks their doors here, and it's not for any other reason other than for protection, because you are squarely in polar bear central at this time. Polar bears do tend to avoid the inhabited areas, but it does happen that they can come by. So nobody really will lock their doors because you never know when you're going to need a quick exit, essentially. So there will be coastal experience team members posted all throughout here. There's really no optional excursions to partake in. So you're just going to walk around here for a few hours and learn about Ny-Ålesund. It's quite interesting. That is when we say our goodbyes to Svalbard. We have another sea day as we meander back down to mainland Norway. We may or may not pass Bear Island again. When I was on board, I sailed southbound in May of 2024, and we definitely busted out all the Norwegian flags and we waved to all of those researchers that are stationed at Bjørnøya. We're going to make a quick stop in Tromsø before exploring the highlight of day 11, which is Senja. So this is described or ranked by CNN's top 10 most beautiful islands in the world. It is described to be a mini Norway because it does have a concentration of diverse landscapes that mirror different parts of the Norwegian coast. There's lots of wildlife in this region, but you should be thinking that this is, again, one of the most scenic areas of Norway. And we're going to be here from the afternoon all the way until about midnight or so. So highly recommend you go explore and participate in one of the optional excursions listed here in Senja. We return to the Vesterålen archipelago and the Svalbard archipelago, or I'm sorry, the Lofoten archipelago. So we're going to call upon Stokmarknes and Svalbard on day 2. So you're going to have 2 hours in Stokmarknes, and then you're going to have 4 hours in Svalbard. We have to call upon Stokmarknes because this is our birthplace. This is where it all started back in 1893, essentially. And we do have a Hurtigruten museum. So when I say we are celebrating along the Norwegian coast, I mean it. You have the opportunity to visit the decommissioned vessel, the MS Finnmarken, decommissioned in 1956. It is so interesting to walk through 131 years of history and legacy here. You'll learn how our fleet was completely decimated during World War II and given the highest priority to rebuild after the war. And there's just countless stories that have been told over our rich history and past here. So 2 hours is actually enough. We dock pretty much within a few hundred meters of this Hurtigruten museum. So just walk over. Entrance is inexpensive here, and then just traverse the 130 plus years of history with us. The second port of call will be the beating heart of the Lofoten archipelago, which is Svalbard. This is again a quaint fishing town, and we dock right in the heart of Svalbard again. So we'll be here for about 4 hours. So you can explore on foot independently, or you can take one of the optional excursions. So you have a sea eagle safari you can go on. Perhaps you are an avid fisherman. Do you want to go fishing in Lofoten, kayaking, or explore Lofoten scenery and Hanningsvær? So if you've seen that Lofoten picture where there's a big soccer field that looks to be surrounded by water at all angles, that is Hanningsvær. So that is, again, another scenic area of Norway. Then we reach the halfway point of Norway, which is Brønnøysund, equal parts north and south. The highlight for me here is Hurtigruten Mountain. So you're really going to fall into the troll lore on day 13. And that is that mountain that you see here. As legend would have it, there was Hestemannen. He was a troll, jilted in love, Lekamøya, and he attempted to kill her by notching an arrow, shooting the arrow after her. The king of Mount Sumna saw this. In an attempt to save her, he threw his hat in the path of the arrow. The arrow pierced the hat, sun rose, and everyone was turned to stone. So Hestemannen, the Seven Sisters mountain range, Hurtigruten Mountain, these are all rumored to be trolls that were turned to stone under the sun. Now, if that's not your cup of tea and you don't care about troll lore, the other explanation is that that hole was formed basically during a recent ice age. And I actually hiked to this hole in Hurtigruten Mountain, and it is big enough to fit one of our ships through it. So highly recommend that you consider booking the Hurtigruten Mountain hike. It is one of the highlights of my voyage on Southbound Svalbard Line from May of 2024. You can also explore Brønnøysund by bike, maybe take a sea adventure by rib, or if you don't want to go on the hike, you can also reach a vantage point of the mountain by the legends of Hurtigruten and Brønnøysund by bus. But really cool excursion, one of the highlights of my voyage. If you are an avid hiker, definitely book this excursion because it is awesome. We are going to visit Ålesund, and we're going to be here in the early morning hours. So a bit of a shorter port stay here. You're going to learn about the Art Nouveau architecture in the region here. There was a bad fire in the early 1900s. So when they rebuilt, they opted to rebuild in Art Nouveau style, which was popular at the time. So all throughout Norway, you will encounter different architectural designs, and you're going to learn about why each design was essentially chosen. Ålesund is an emerging tourist port because it is the jump-off port for a couple of pretty impressive fjords. One is the UNESCO-listed Geirangerfjord, but the second is the Jørenfjord. So we're gonna leave Ålesund in the morning, and we are going to sail into the Jørenfjord. So not UNESCO-listed, but no less impressive. Absolutely stunning. This is from my voyage in May of 2024. And actually, I was in the Panorama Lounge right when that drone was filming. So technically, I'm starring in this video, but we'll take you to a small port called Sæbø, where you can take the tender ashore, essentially. Or you can stay on board, but the highlight of the day will be the scenic cruising in and out of the Jørenfjord. All right, that brings us to day 15 in Bergen. You do arrive back in the morning, so you can extend here or make your way home at this point. We do get back at a favorable hour. So hopefully this overview is getting you jazzed about the itinerary and also helping you if you do want to choose one of the half voyages. Let's move on though to what wildlife we can see in Svalbard. So you can see the reindeer. You can see reindeer in the northern regions of mainland Norway, and you can see the Svalbard reindeer all over Longyearbyen as well. In Svalbard, they have Arctic foxes, so you might see them brown colored in the summer, and they do turn white in the winter. Walrus, we had a bunch of walrus that set up shop right outside the Longyearbyen airport when we were there. So not uncommon to see walrus or even puffins. You can start to see them on mainland Norway in the north as well as in Svalbard. Maybe you'll see Arctic terns. They migrate all the way from Antarctica to Svalbard. So I do believe that's the longest migration of any bird. Also be on the lookout for whales or perhaps some seals. Now, important to note, when you are booking the Svalbard Line, all excursions do carry an optional charge. So you should plan accordingly. And you always want to look at the level 1 through 4. So level 1 is something that is suitable for most guests, but level 4 is going to require good mobility and fitness. So for example, that hike to Torghatten Mountain, I would slate that as a level 3, level 4. So just make sure you are looking at the levels and booking the excursions that are best suited to your fitness level and mobility. So a few examples of excursions would be paddle boarding, the Sea Eagle Safari in Lofoten, fishing excursion in Lofoten, a couple kayaking excursions. You can learn about wilderness and history in Longyearbyen. A big part of a Hurtigruten experience is optional hikes. So even hikes that we will offer on board, they're not pre-bookable. If it's looking like a beautiful day and we get enough participants, our coastal experience team members will take you out on a hike. So you can book these on board, and there are a few that are pre-bookable. You'll learn about Vikings, and you'll also have the opportunity to four-wheel to the North Cape, or maybe you want to go dog sledding on wheels in Longyearbyen. So let's talk about your base camp at sea, your home away from home. This is the MS Trollfjord, fully refurbished in 2023. You will have a 2-story panorama lounge, as I showed you earlier. The ship will have a lecture hall with movie theater style seating. We have a beautiful sauna with floor to ceiling windows. These are culinary cruises, so we do have fitness centers to offset that caloric intake. We have a robust gift shop. So if you are team carry-on, beware, you might be team check-in on the way home, but fear not, we do sell 70-liter bags on board. Also have a library and loads of observation deck space in general. So in the summer, we will be chasing the Northern Lights, but we do have a North Cape Line Northern Lights signature itinerary for the winter as well. So anything on board, consider this your home away from home, just a cozy, cottagey kind of experience, but put that on a ship. We do have well-appointed suites, some that have balconies, others that have floor-to-ceiling bay windows, and we do have a wide variety of non-suite stateroom options. Just again, be mindful that non-suite stateroom options, they do have a tighter footprint. So a Hurtigruten experience is meant to be spent out and about on the ship. It is a quiet, tranquil experience. The ship used to carry up to 822 guests, and we've now capped her at 500. So you do get a lot of ship for your money. I mentioned the Norway's Coastal Kitchen. This is absolutely a culinary cruise. So your main dining is going to fall to Flora. That is going to give you full board breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Breakfast and lunch will, generally speaking, be a buffet format with loads of options, and dinner is generally at assigned times. So when you are booking, please communicate your preferred time of dining for dinner, and we will try to accommodate that as best as we can. We also have a bistro brasserie Arran. This is our way of showing respect and gratitude to the Sami people and everything they've done for Norway. Arran is actually a northern Sami word for the heart, the fire at the heart of a lavo, which is that temporary dwelling used by the Sami people for thousands of years. The intent of this restaurant, this is a place where you are to gather and share stories, and that's exactly what we hope you'll do in Brasserie Arran. Also, great option for comfort food. You can get pepper steak with béarnaise sauce, gastro burgers. You can get vegan burgers, crab cakes. So lots of options here for you to choose between. The culinary star of the Svalbard Line and MS Trollfjord is Røst. This is inspired by the ancient fish bank of Røst and Lofoten Islands. And this is paying tribute to the produce that helped establish Norway, which is fish. You will have a sommelier here that will perfectly pair wines or even non-alcoholic beverages to perfectly curated meals here in Røst. We have gotten so much great feedback on Røst. We have had people who basically live on cruise ships. They basically said that Røst had the best culinary concept. So this is included for all suite guests. So if you are a foodie, then maybe consider booking a suite. So you have this restaurant included on all days. If you don't book a suite, you can upgrade for an additional charge. So Flora and Arran, that is included for all guests, and Røst is included for suite guests, optional charge for non-suite guests. We also have an 1893 bar in your living room here. That is a two-story panorama lounge. 60% of our beverages are also sourced locally. So you're really going to taste the Norwegian coast in a libation form here as well. So you will learn about the Norwegian akevit. They make akevit only for Hurtigruten. We have breweries that make organic IPAs only for Hurtigruten. Distilleries that make premium Arctic gin, once again, only for Hurtigruten. We cherish the Norwegian tradition of having afternoon coffee and cakes. So we always have that afternoon snack. And you can hang out with your bartenders here, chasing the midnight sun in summer and for the North Cape Line Northern Lights. So this is from my Northern Lights voyage of 2023. So let's talk about what's included. So on the round trip voyages, you will have a choice of both cabin category and your cabin number. Same with suites. If you book one of the half voyages, your suite or cabin number will be assigned upon check-in. The ship does have Starlink, so you do have Wi-Fi included, full board in Flora, lunch and dinner in Arran for all guests, and you do have the additional inclusion of Røst if you have booked a suite. Afternoon snacks, you'll have culinary demonstrations, food tastings. This is a culinary voyage. A 6-person coastal experience team. You will have daily lectures, photography tips and tricks. You will have movie nights, music entertainment, library access. And if you book a suite, you'll also receive a Hurtigruten clothing package, including a shell jacket, sweater, and a wool hat. So I hope this is helpful. I hope you've enjoyed this overview of the Svalbard Line. We hope to have the opportunity to welcome you on board. And if you enjoyed this, we do also recommend that you watch our other webinar called Secrets of Svalbard. So with that, I would like to say 1,000 thanks, or tusen takk, as we would say in Norway. And I hope you have a wonderful day, or ha en kjempefin dag.